Before we continue, we'll take a brief recap of what we did yesterday. We began yesterday by looking at the importance of taking stock of our life, thinking, inquiring, transforming our lives. And the theme of the Bhagavad Gita we saw was what? The power of the spirit. And that we have a choice between choosing matter or spirit every moment of our lives. If you choose matter, you lose everything. In spite of the hard work, in spite of striving, struggling, at the end of it all, you get nothing. You choose spirit, effortlessly, you gain all. Then we took a look at the three qualities that make for each and every human being, in fact, every living being. And the three qualities are sattva, rajas, tamas. And that all of us have all three qualities. The management of these three qualities is what makes the difference between a successful, fulfilled person and an unsuccessful, frustrated person. Depending on the mix of sattva, rajas, tamas that we have, humanity was classified into 4 varnas or castes, and this is based on your internal composition, not on genetics. So the 4 castes are the thinkers, the visionaries, the leaders of society, intellectuals. Remember, ancient India was led not by men and women of wealth, as it is today, but by men and women of outstanding wisdom and knowledge. And that is what made for this fantastic legacy that we have and the culture that we have inherited. Kshatriyas were predominantly rajasik. They were the achievers, they were the go-getters, they were the competitive guys. But with a touch of sattva, they ruled fairly, honestly, for thousands of years. Then came the Vaishyas, the traders, and the Sudras, the craftsmen. Each class of varna was encouraged to reach perfection by following their swadharma. And this is one of the most outstanding things we learn that is relevant in our lives today as much as it was 5,000 years ago. So with this brief recap, we continue with what? Again, take a look at our lives. What makes for our life? Our lives are boring, insipid, monotonous, routine, drudgery. The dreariness of life is written on the faces of each one of us as we go out to work. You look at thousands of people pouring out of railway stations. You see thousands of cars driving into office areas every morning. What do you see? People pulling long faces. The bigger the car, the longer the face. Who are the guys who are cheerful? As we were coming here, we saw 6 people somehow pushing themselves into an auto rickshaw, but they all had smiles on their faces. We are the guys who can't smile. So anyway, this is our life. The Bhagavad Gita talks about an exciting life, a vitalizing life, energetic life, inspiring life. Inspiration is the one thing that is missing in the world today. The first 2 words of the Bhagavad Gita are dharmakshetre, kurukshetre. This dharmakshetra, this inner personality of ours, which should have been the abode, or which is actually the abode of dharma, of all that is pure and benevolent and happy, blissful, today has become a kurukshetra, the abode of stress and pain and unnecessary sorrow and suffering. And it is our mission in life to convert this kurukshetra back into dharmakshetra. How do you do this? The ancient masters put before us what they called as the Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma is eternal principles of life and living, just as there are laws of physics, laws of chemistry, laws of biology, which existed before scientists discovered and which will continue to exist if all of humanity were to forget about them. There is this Sanatana Dharma, which is a collection of laws that govern the internal world. But just because they are subtle does not mean they are not precise. These internal laws function as precisely as the law of gravity or the laws of thermodynamics or laws of anything. But in the presentation of the Sanatana Dharma, in the application of the Sanatana Dharma, they came to be known what is known as Yuga Dharma, because depending on the circumstances, depending on various factors prevailing in a given generation, the implementation of this Sanatana Dharma had to necessarily be different. So these are social norms. So in our legacy, in our inheritance, we have two distinct knowledges. One is the Sanatana Dharma and the second is the Yuga Dharma, eternal values and social norms. It goes to the credit of Indian masters that they prescribed the right approach, and this right approach was uphold eternal values at any cost. As far as values go, they are inflexible. They are non-negotiable. But when it comes to Yuga Dharma, when it comes to social norms, you must have the capacity to quickly change. Change, adjust, readjust to the prevailing conditions. And this is what made for the tremendous vitality and incessant youth of the Indian culture. We were quick to adapt, quick to adopt new norms, but never at the expense of eternal values. It's only in recent times when what we did was we went completely wrong. We lost the wisdom to know the difference. And what did we do? We forsook the eternal values, leading to chaotic conditions. And we became inflexible as far as the social norms were concerned, and therefore we got left behind. And this is the problem. So you need to have this right approach. Many of us believe that it is our culture, that it is our philosophy, that it is the Bhagavad Gita that has held us back from progressing. Completely wrong. We believe that the Bhagavad Gita prevents us from obtaining material prosperity. Totally wrong. In fact, it is the Bhagavad Gita and Vedanta which speak of two things. That we need what is known as pravritti, dynamic, efficient, external action. But this pravritti must be backed by nivritti, which is internal development. So you have pravritti or dynamic, wonderful external action that is supported by a set of values. And no dharma, which is nivritti, is internal development. And when there is a balance between the two, when there is pravritti and nivritti, today there isn't. There is pravritti, yes. There is development. But there is no internal development. Therefore, we are in a situation where those of us who have access to material prosperity don't have internal happiness or fulfillment. And this frustration drives us to get more material prosperity. It never occurs to us that what we need is internal development. If there is a balance between the two, there is what Vedanta calls as a wonderful synthesis of abhyudaya. Abhyudaya is social development, external development, progress, GDP. Today, growth or development is measured only by GDP. But that's only half the story. The other half of the story is nishreyasa, which is spiritual enlightenment, spiritual development. And this abhyudaya comes from, abhi means together, not alone. Whenever you look at progress, most of us look at, oh, I must get ahead of others. I must be richer than others. I must be more powerful than others. I must have more market share than others. No, in the Indian system, it is abhyudaya, means not only must I develop, but the entire system must develop. And this comes from spiritual enlightenment. Otherwise, there's an imbalance. Like Schopenhauer, the great German philosopher, said, when men achieve security and welfare states, they have taken care of problems outside. Then they become a problem unto themselves. And that's what's happened. This nishreyasa, this capacity, the intention, this irresistible desire to share one's good fortune with others is something that it's inherent in the Indian culture, but we've lost it. Who's lost it? We, westernized people, have lost it. But inherent in the culture is, if something good happens to me, instantly we share it. You know, there was a harmonium player who worked with Grindlay's Bank. This is a true story. In those days, 20 years ago. When he retired from Grindlay's Bank, after a year or two, he suddenly got a nice check in the post, and it happened to be his bonus for 2 years back, which he had not even considered. And it was a windfall. But he said, I didn't know that this amount was coming. I had not planned for this amount to be part of my retirement benefits. So this is a windfall. This is excess that I've got. So you know what he did? He went and donated that entire amount to an orphanage somewhere here in the suburbs. Not suburbs, outside Bombay. When you hear that, take a look at us. Suppose we were to get a windfall check from someone. What would you think of doing? First you'll say, I can buy that LCD TV that I always wanted. I can buy a washing machine that I always wanted. I can buy a dryer. I can buy a better car. How many of us will think, it's a windfall. It's God's gift to me. And obviously He must have given it to me to give it to somebody else. This is that sharing capacity. This comes from this combination of abhyudaya and nishreyasa. When you are strongly, deeply rooted in spiritual values, you naturally bring about prosperity to everyone around you. Now let's take a look at how to bring this synthesis of external development and internal enrichment. Take a look at our transactions. We interact with the world through, number one, perception, sense contact. We have 5 sense organs: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. And these 5 sense organs are constantly in touch with their corresponding sense objects in the world. So this is one transaction that is going on. The second transaction is action. So when there is a sense perception, it enters you, stimuli from the world enter you, and then you act. Perception and action are the 2 functions of your physical body. What kind of actions do you perform? Let's take a look at that. The third is emotion. Your mind is constantly reaching out into the world for emotional gratification. The next is thought, intellect. You are communicating with the world at the thought level, at the intellectual level. So, how can we fine-tune all these transactions in such a way that what comes to us is, number 1, success in the world, number 2, internal happiness, number 3, that we grow to our potential. We grow to the state of perfection or enlightenment. This is the theme of these few verses. So, let's take a look at sense contact. When the sense contact is driven merely by the mind, in other words, you like seeing, so you want to see more, you like to go and see movies, hearing, you like to listen to good music, and it is only this that drives you, then you only indulge. So you contact a sense object, you enjoy it, it gives you pleasure, and you want more and more. And there are people whose entire life is driven just by sense indulgence. What happens when you do that? Number one, you really don't enjoy. You're rushing after something. You get it. Even if you get it, your enjoyment is robbed. So you feel shortchanged always. Secondly, you're indulging in such a way that it becomes an obstruction to your pursuit of success and happiness. An indulgent person will never be successful. An outstanding example that stares us in the face is that of Tiger Woods, correct. What a terrible thing to happen, that one of the best golfers in the world today has had to give up golf for whatever reason, because of indulgence. Slightly better than that is where you bring about a method in the madness, which means your contact with the sense organs is scanned by your intellect. The intellect weighs the pros and cons and tells you, yes, it is perfectly okay to enjoy this, or it is not all right at this moment to go and enjoy it. And if you have the courage to follow the intellectual dictate, then you find that you enjoy it because the intellect makes you regulate your contact with the sense objects. So every time you contact the sense object, there is immense enjoyment that comes from it. As we saw yesterday, the law of diminishing returns does not function. Also, it doesn't obstruct your pathway to success, progress. Whatever it is that you want to achieve, you're able to achieve and enjoy the world as well. And most importantly, because you are not thrown off guard, off your course, you achieve, you move, you evolve as a human being. But the best way to go about it is to divinize every sense contact. What do we mean by divinize? Every time there is a contact with the sense object, you ask yourself, what is it? Instead of focusing on the object that gives you a certain enjoyment, you look within and say, what is it that enables me to enjoy this? Today when you go home and have your dinner, wonderful food is spread before you. Have you ever wondered who created the rice the way it is? Who made the cauliflower the way it is? Who made dal the way it is? Without thinking, you simply go and indulge. But if you think, it sparks off a completely different kind of enjoyment and revelry, and you say, what must be that divine power that enables me to see this wonderful world, to hear sound, to taste, and how we are able to figure out the difference between subtle changes. And then you realize you're in a state of constant ecstasy, because it doesn't matter what you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, or touching. Sometimes the world presents us with pleasant objects. Sometimes the world presents us with unpleasant objects. When you go home today, there is no guarantee that the food is going to be tasty. It might be burnt. I hope not. But even if it is burnt, if your attention is on that divine power that enables me to taste this burnt food, how wonderful, what a wonderful state it is. This is precisely what is discussed in the Kenopanishad, when the student who is full of enthusiasm and is totally, completely prepared for self-realization, he wants to know who is God, what is God. He goes to the Guru, enlightened Guru, and asks him, he says, who is God? Where is God? What is God? And the Guru answers in such simple terms, but in such inspiring terms, that we need to look at that just one mantra, the Guru's answer.
श्रोत्रस्य श्रोत्रं मनसो मनो यद्वाचोह वाचगुंसौ प्राणस्य प्राणः चक्षुषश्चक्षुरतिमुच्य धीरा प्रेत्यास्मा लोकादमृता भवन्ति.
So in answer to the ardent student's question, the Guru doesn't say, oh, God is infinite bliss. The Guru doesn't say God is beyond the world, doesn't use complicated terms. He simply uses the words that you and I understand, that every child understands. Interpretation, of course, is difficult. So who is God? What is God? Shrotrasya shrotram. Why does he say ear of the ear? Because the student is listening. Right now we are listening. So he straight away gets to where you are actually experiencing. So when you hear, you're hearing words, you're hearing ideas, you're hearing sound. Where is God? He says, God is not the sound that you are listening to. God is that power within you that enables you to hear, that enlightens your hearing, that facilitates your ability to hear. Just listen. God is that which enables your eyes to see, the eye of the eye. So when you look at the perception, the hearing, your mind goes out to the sound. Trace it back. What is it that enables me to hear? Is it the tympanum? Is it the nerves? Is it the nerve center in the mind? And even if you go to the most brilliant ENT surgeon at some stage, he'll give various answers, and then if you say, no, but beyond this, what is it that makes me hear? He'll say, I don't know. That I don't know is God. So now, in your everyday, ordinary experiences, you're constantly hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. Instead of, see, it becomes a mundane experience when your attention goes out into that which you are hearing. The same experience becomes a divine experience when your attention goes to that which enables you to hear, see, smell, taste, and touch. Try it when you go home this evening and you're having dinner. Just before the dinner, pause for a few seconds and say, that which enables me to taste this wonderful food is God. Then you eat. It's okay. So this is how